You approve
Second.
or recommend approval? To full council for approval? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Third item on the agenda is request to rezone TMS number 130-10000051, located at 603 North Maple Street, totaling approximately 0.77 acres and owned by Lawrence and Melissa Lopez Gibson from NR Neighborhood Residential to NB Neighborhood Business. This is in Council District 1. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on July 17th, 2023.
Any discussion? I'll make a motion. We forward it to council for approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is a request to amend the Somerville Unified Development Ordinance UDO Chapter 10 signs, Section 10.5, changeable copy signs. This was submitted by not by staff, by a member of the public. Planning Commission held a public hearing and sent the item to council with no recommendation at their meeting on July 17th, 2023.
Jesse, there's a item F and item D are connected.
Yes, sir. So item D, like I said, is the one that was submitted by a citizen to amend the ordinance. Item F is staff's recommended changes to the ordinance. There are some similarities, both try to clarify the sections of Chapter 10 that were somewhat unclear. But the item D, it would change the process for approval of reader boards or changeable copy signs to allow changeable copy window signs to be approved at staff level. Right now, they're all approved at board level, either DRB or BAR, whereas Chapter 10 would keep it as a board level decision. I mean, letter F would keep it as a board level decision. Sorry, too many letters.
What discussion would we like to have on that?
I was just going to say, Jesse, thank you for answering my questions. I looked into this request and while those types of signs, the electronic signs are modern and provide a lot of opportunities for our businesses to get their information out. These approvals of these signs have not gone well within the town, and there's a lot more, from what I understand, that's needed to control some of this. I would like to see these types of signs being allowed in certain uses if they're done with a very high quality. However, I don't think we're in a position now where we can do that. So I will recommend that we do not, or we send forward a recommendation of denial to the council, full council,
That's on item D.
on item D.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Letter E is proposed amendments to Somerville Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 7, parking and driveways, Section 7.3, vehicle parking location. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on July 17th, 2023. As we've seen with a lot of these amendments, this is just fixing a slight discrepancy between Chapter 2 and Chapter 7. Chapter 2 allowed for parking on the side and the rear in neighborhood mixed use. Chapter 7 only allowed it in the rear. So we are changing Chapter 7 to also allow it on the side and the rear.
How did we miss that? I'll make a motion. We pass that forward for recommendation for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm gonna blame Councilman Bailey for not catching that.
I don't-
Former Councilman Bailey.
Amazing what you don't catch, even though you look at something
For a year.
hundreds of times. The next one is letter F, proposed amendments to the Somerville Unified Development Ordinance, chapter 10 signs, section 10.2.1 applicability, section 10.4.3 building signs requiring a permit, section 10.5 changeable copy signs, section 10.8.1 incidental signs, and section 10.9 prohibited signs. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for denial at their meeting on July 17th, 2023. As I explained previously, section 10.5 was similar to what was proposed by a citizen, but kept it at the board level. The section 10.2.1 applicability, we just clarified that window signs are applicable to this ordinance. It was implied, but it wasn't clearly stated. So we clarified that. 10.4.3 clarified window signage within the window sign section. I've already explained the changeable copy incidental signs, just explaining that a sign that says open doesn't count towards your allowed window signage. That's all that does, is it includes open and closed in that. And then section 10.9 is making it clear that the flutter signs or the there's another name for them, I can't think of it, feather flags, that those are not allowed, which they're not, and they haven't ever been, but it's just specifically stating that they're not allowed.
And is there anything in there about the area of town or visibility? And I guess what I'm trying to get at, some places they're fine. You really don't see them. They're not in your face. Other places you're riding down a road and it's like a neon.
The problem is we can't really differentiate between one and the other. Per the Supreme Court, we have to treat them all the same. If we're not going to allow it, we can't designate it's only allowed for this business and not this. We have to treat them all the same.
Okay.
And so we can't do it that way. We have to basically either say they're allowed or they're prohibited. I mean, I guess there could be a way that if it was a certain distance off the road, but then it would be a bit of an enforcement nightmare.
So right now they're not allowed at all.
No, it falls under that section of the prohibited signs. It talks about, we don't allow banners or flags other than the ones that are specifically stated, but it doesn't call them out directly by name. And so
This-
apparently a lot of sign companies choose to miss that they're not allowed.
I'll make a motion that we.
Well, you can go ahead and then we'll start.
Oh, okay. I'll make a motion that we move this to full council for approval.
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Ms. Schuler, the planning commission recommended denial. And that was based on no public input or comment, or what was the basis?
That was based on one of the planning commission members not believing that changeable copy signs should have to go before a board for approval. That's my understanding of, that's the only reason this got
Okay,
recommended for denial.
they wanted it to stay at the staff level,
Correct. Well, not stay, they wanted to change it to staff level.
change it to the staff level.
Yeah, currently it requires board approval.
Personally, myself, I think the more eyes and decisions, the better.
Well, I'll just say, I think there's a lot of work that we can do in this space to allow other opportunities from a signing standpoint as technology advances that can be high quality, but it doesn't sound like we're there yet. So I'll just state that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Letter G, proposed amendments to the Somerville Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 13, Administration and Procedures, Section 13.3.3, Board of Zoning Appeals, and Section 13.4.2, Public Notice Requirements. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on July 17th, 2023. Just a brief explanation. Section 3.3.3 Board of Zoning Appeals changes the number of members from 5 to 7. We've talked about this for a few years now, and we're just finally actually doing it. That would allow each council member to have their own appointment to that board, as you have with almost all our other boards. For some reason, BZA has just been 5 instead of 7. So that's just upping that to 7. That's all that changes. And then 13.4.2, the Board of Architectural Review for the Historic District is the only board that requires us to mail out notices to adjacent property owners. The language currently requires it be mailed out to property owners within 500 feet, which at times can be hundreds of property owners for a property. If it's in, say, this area of the historic district where you've got lots of small properties, we get maybe, I mean, it varies, but we get a number of those returned in the mail. They don't go through for some reason or another. Even if the address is correct, sometimes it doesn't go through. And then we also have had property owners in the historic district complaining that they get too many of those notices. So we are just changing it to literally be only adjacent property owners that get that notice.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. We move forward this with a recommendation of approval to full council.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Hang on, I
Uh,
have one question first to Jesse. How many responses do you get back?
Very rarely do we get any responses from those.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
And the last one is proposed amendments to Somerville Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 15 definitions, Section 15.3 definition of terms. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on July 17th, 2023. This is updating the definition for window signs to again clarify certain things. And then also we noticed that somehow the definition for single family dwelling was incorporated into the definition of a window sign. So it's taking that out as its own separate definition.
Any questions?
Nope.
Have a motion?
I'll make a motion. We move that forward for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Somerville Public Safety Committee. First item on the agenda is, well, either can go first. We've got reports from both of our chiefs, the quarterly report. So whoever would like to go for first between Chief Melcher and Chief Wright.
Got Bill? Councilman McIntyre, pardon me.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all?
I'll be the acting chair and I'll call into order. Doug, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Give your report.
Yes, sir. So committee, obviously you see your numbers from 2022 as compared to so far in August of this year. A lot of our numbers are looking about the same, but some of them are trending up. If you look down at shoplifting, we're almost at where we were last year. Don't really understand what the uptick is in that, other than the fact that our hospitality team has been doing a lot of legwork on the backside of these cases. And they're making a lot of shoplifting arrests based off of warrants using surveillance video. But glad to see that we don't have any homicides this year. And obviously our overdoses are a little troublesome as well. Next. I'm not going to go into all these grants we've applied for, but we've applied for $1.2 million in grants. We've been awarded for most of which, about half of what you see up there. Obviously, in white, you see that the bulletproof vest for the SWAT team is reimbursable through a grant. Any questions? Next. We have a lot of accomplishments. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to slowly just let you look at the pages here. But we stay busy. Obviously, all the stuff that's going on in town, but every event we're at, most of them. And then obviously we're doing a lot of other things. Next. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. One of the big things we've done is we entered an agreement with Chief Waring and Melcher. The gymnasium that we had created in the brick building across the street from the police department was being used by both police and fire, which could be a bit burdensome when you have everybody in there working out at the same time. So we converted one of the garages that's over at Dominion property. Don't worry, we didn't make any structural changes, Mr. Mayor. But we painted and put in some new gym equipment over there for the officers. One of the big things I'll tell you about is we were able to obtain a grant for a new police dog. What's unusual about this police dog is there's only 6 in South Carolina, and it's an electronics detection canine. And what that's used for is to detect electrical devices that are used by sexual predators. Give you an example, what happened recently, there's one in Charleston County, and they went to a search warrant where the police officers had searched the entire house of this alleged suspect, didn't find anything by hand. The dog went into the house and located a box hidden inside of the bottom of the mattress that was wrapped up that had SIM cards in it, and different other pieces of evidence that had evidence on it for child pornography. So one of our detectives that's assigned to our ICAC cases, which is our internet crimes against children, is going to be handling that dog. It's going to be a lab, and it's about a $6,000 or $8,000 investment that they're making for us. Next. Just more of the same stuff you see us do every year. Obviously, we're doing a lot of stuff. Next. Again, just more of the stuff you see every year. Not much has changed. We're busy. And the reason why I put so many of these things in here is to want you to know that aside from our normal duties, there's ancillary duties that we're doing all the time. Next. Obviously, we had a big tabletop exercise with Dorchester County School District 2, where we participated with them and the school district counterparts, and that was a success. We also assisted District 4 up in the other part of the county with theirs as well. But as you see, we're doing a lot of stuff. Next. Kickball game cost me a broken foot, but I signed that non-disclaimer so the waiver. So it's not workman's comp. Thank you, Chris. But yeah, more of the same old stuff you see up there. Next. Any questions?
One little question, how often do you meet with the coffee with the cops?
We do one about every couple months, every quarter. He asked when we meet for coffee with a cop. We make our round robins about every quarter or so. We try to find we don't want to pick a specific vendor. So we try to move ourselves around, but yes, sir.
Just curious.
Chris, this
Hit the other one.
hit the wrong button. Is this on the website? Yeah, I know it's on live stream, but will it be on the website for some period of time, just for people to look at? Huh? The presentation.
I know we have it on the standing committee section.
Okay.
Gentlemen? Good.
Okay, finished?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Let's bring up the fire chief.
Good evening.
Evening.
So our calls for April through July pretty much stayed the same as far as overall totals. I will say for between April and July, we only had one house fire in the town of Somerville. Everything else was on either Berkeley County, mutual aid, or auto or mutual aid with Dorchester County as well. You can go to the next one. We did have one building fire in there for. It was a busted hydraulic line, no damage to the building whatsoever. Some more significant calls. The reason I bring this up, we had 3 child fatalities, all within a month span. We had 2 drownings and 1 fatal shooting. I can't thank Chief Wright's crew enough. On all 3 calls, the 2 public safety departments work seamlessly together. And as you know, calls like that, we go to these things all the time, but when it comes to children, it has a direct impact on the community and us as well. We do have guys that are actually going through counseling because of some of these calls. So, and then like I mentioned before, multiple auto and mutual aid fires, Dorchester County and Berkeley County. This is some of our training. You can see April through June, numbers were up there, but that was during our recruit school. So July is about our average for the month. Inspections, they're usually around 300 to 300 to 400, depending on how busy the guys are. Some pub ed stuff. These are just a few highlights. Have vehicle career day at Oak Brook Elementary. We installed 48 car seats. I believe that's just the June numbers. We usually average about 50 car seats a month. Attended career days at various schools for recruitment and retention. And I believe about 3 to 4 times a week over the summer, we go and spray down kids at various camps in the area. Recruitment, our recruit class 2308 graduated June 30th. They seem to be adjusting pretty well to the new schedule. Our fast track is going to begin in October. We have 12 that we're going to be hired for the open positions there. So. Station 6 is slated for the end of August, September, I say. It may be a little closer to September. They are having a little bit of issues with some electrical equipment, but they were able to get, I believe on Friday, they were able to get the power on so they can kind of finish up some of that stuff. Several of our members attended the command officer boot camp in Pensacola. We did have a donation from CMC Rescue Equipment for our tech rescue team. And we had crews attended the active shooter drills at Somerville and Woodland High Schools. Of course, Chief Waring's last day was June 23rd. We had Captain Mike Turnbull retired on July 7th. Upcoming promotional testing for engineers and captains. And our crews attended the Memorial Stair Climb This is the second straight year that we've had the most number of attendees. So. Some promotions. We had our battalion chief Dana Qualabom, Michael Hunt to captain, Jonathan Omrine to captain, and the two engineers, David Bruce and Foster Dupree. Any questions?
Any questions? No questions so far. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
you. Need a minute to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Am I still on mute? Anybody hear me?
What are you looking?
3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, I guess maybe we do.
All right, this time we'll start off with our finance committee. Ms. Rhonda, you will get us going, let us know how much money we got or how much money we don't have. I appreciate you getting going. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You have before you the July 23rd financial report. This is the first month of the fiscal year ending June 24th. For this month, we took in just under 1.9 million in revenue and spent almost 4.2 million. There were a couple items in the expenses I'd like to call your attention to that were we had under building and grounds, we had our semi-annual insurance payment. So that of course increased that line item more than typically it would during a month. Also capital expenditures included some of the Station 6 construction expenses. Some of that will be transferred to impact fees. And non-departmental includes a legal settlement. I put it in that category. We may end up transferring that to admin to legal fees, but I wanted to be able to identify where that is. Under other income, the transfers in are a monthly transfer from hospitality tax of $291. So we ended the month with roughly a $2 million deficit.
Ms. Rhonda, if I might, could you back up? Just to go back to a bunch of other council meetings where we've had discussions on this. As we look at revenues of 1.8, this is the month of July when we really start spending down what our fund balance is, and this will show us that $2.5 million will basically pull from fund balance, and that's why we run the fund balance that we do. Thank you.
That's correct. Thank you. You have a detailed listing of the revenues. There's not much that's that unusual. I think everything was approximately within budget. We did have stormwater review fees. I think we had must have a big project that we took in money for that particular month for that account. Otherwise, they're pretty standard. Under state revenues, seems like the first month of the fiscal year, we don't get our state revenues quite as routinely as we do. It takes them till about first or second week of August to get rolling, and then we'll get them every month at that point. So we do have some local option sales tax that I expect shortly. Municipal court is right on target. Any questions on any of those revenue items? Next page, Beth. Miscellaneous. This of course includes our interest income, various rec fees, We did have a couple of line items for Parks and Rec, and Amy and I are working on trying to get some better cohesive information. But I think they collected a lot of their camp fees and some of their league fees in May and June. So some refunds and some of those kind of things kind of came through as negative revenue items this particular month. And there are transfers in, like I said before, or from hospitality of 291. Next is impact fees. We didn't have any expenditures and impact fees. We had revenues. And again, we kind of changed this format up in the last couple months, but it shows you total for Parks and Rec across, well, it's across residential, fire, across residential and commercial. We didn't have any, very little activity and commercial impact fees during July. So we took in a total of $82,000 across all areas. Any questions? Okay. The next report is a detail of hospitality and accommodations. We took in a little over $500,000 in hospitality revenue in July. I believe the 18 is a tag grant. I believe that's what that is for 533. The expenses are, of course, Team 6 and the ordinary hospitality expenses we have. And that also includes the transfer out to the general fund. The last report is our stormwater. Of course, this fund will not be taking in much revenues until later on in the year from the tax bills. We did have a little bit of probably delinquent taxes that collected those fees of just over 2,000. We had expenditure to date of 17,000 for a deficit of 15,000 for the month. Any questions? As always, if you ever have any questions, my door's open.
Thank you, Mom.
Authorization to surplus vehicle R63, a 2002 Ford F-150 with 156,000 miles. The request is from the Parks and Recreation Department.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second.
Okay, motion on the floor, we approve this surplus. Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of this signify by raising right hand, voting aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. All in favor of this signify by voting aye.
Authorization to issue a purchase order in the amount of $40,352 to Santee Automotive for a 2023 Dodge Durango all-wheel drive for the School Resource Officer Unit. Funds are to come from the general fund and will be reimbursed by the state of South Carolina from an SRO grant, and the request is from the Police Department.
Make a motion, we approve.
I'll second.
Motion made, second, any discussion? All in favor of this signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. In favor of this signify by saying aye. Okay,
Mr. Mayor, if there's no discussion of proposed upcoming council agenda items, I would make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
all in favor of this signify by voting
Aye.
aye. Opposed? Okay.